Welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Miller. Every week, I chat with fascinating people from all walks of life in order to bring you knowledge, inspiration, and insight. If you enjoy the show, you can support it by subscribing, leaving a review, and sharing it with a friend. This is the Jeremy Miller Podcast. Dylan Delaney, welcome to the podcast, dude.
Thanks for having me.
This feels kind of surreal, and it's like, is this real life?
Yeah, it really does. Just to have seen this set like from the other side for so long, and then to be here in person, it is surreal. That's accurate.
Yeah, dude. I mean, almost a year you've been editing the podcast,
Mm-hmm.
all from Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
Correct,
dude.
Mm-hmm.
We got connected through Drew Darby initially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Shout out Drew,
Mm-hmm.
one of the best videographers in all of Austin, Texas.
Yeah, Drew's the man.
He's the man. And you guys went to high school together, I think, right?
Yeah, it was the same. It was a K through 12 school. So he he's like 4 years older. So our classes weren't even close, but it all originated from like I would have conversations with people, and like I did musical theater, so there were people in higher grades involved with that, and I would always mention like, oh, I'm working on this short film project, or I'm editing this video, and they would say like, surely you've heard of Drew Darby, right? Like you've talked to him, and I'm like, no, not really. And then that would be like a repeated occurrence. They would keep telling me to talk to him. I'm like, I gotta like figure out who this Drew Darby guy is. And then we got connected and ended up doing a short film together that I wrote, and he graciously helped cast it. There's like seniority there that he had, so I was able to like look up to him, and I certainly like owe a lot to Drew where I'm at in my career. So yeah, Drew's the best.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. Did he go by Drew B. Darby in high school?
I don't believe so. No. Yeah, that's that might be more recent. Yeah.
For some reason in my head, I envision his parents, and like when they would address him, Drew B. Darby. Like, I feel like that's just like his name forever. That's what I call him.
Right.
Or Hubie Drewby is usually how I start my voice messages to him.
Mm-hmm. Oh, really?
Hubie Drewby
makes it unique for sure in terms of branding.
Yeah.
Like you can recognize them that way. So
yeah, that's awesome, dude. I'm so glad to have you here, all the way from Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
I feel like you know everything about me, and I know absolutely nothing about you. I mean, we've hung out all day today, so I feel like I'm getting to know you. But prior to today,
mm-hmm.
I didn't know really anything about you.
Yeah. I've learned that it's good to, well, first of all, like I've never been to Texas. So if I could find an excuse to travel to a new state, I'm going to do it. But also like I've just learned any business really is so relationship driven and connection driven. It's worth putting the time and money and effort into investing in those colleagues and business relationships, because you'll always get returns on that if you like strengthen those. Like we've been communicating via email for like almost a year now. We were joking earlier that it's all been in one thread with like over 400 emails. We should start a new one. Going forward, we'll probably like work better knowing each other on a personal level. It'll translate over to like the work we do and the edits and just like the whole business aspect of it. So that's like really what I've been realizing more and more, is to just like invest in those relationships. And even though there might not be like a tangible like financial return on it per se, it's still worth it in the long run.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, and even from just like a human perspective, just
right.
having good relationships with people, whether it's business or not,
Mm-hmm.
just like having, I mean, I feel like we could hang out. We hung out all day today. Like
mm-hmm.
I ran 13 miles. You biked 13 miles. You said that was the longest you'd ever gone, right?
Yeah. Walking, running, or biking, just like any distance, I think it's probably a record for me. So
that's sick.
It's I mean, I was proud of myself. I know it's kind of like taking the easy way out on the bike, but given that my mileage is not there yet, I just didn't want to, even though my mind would love to tell me I can do like half marathon distance without any training, or not even running half that distance. It probably wasn't the best idea, but certainly now it's given me like the aspiration to build up to that distance, and I think it's totally possible now. So
that's
like,
awesome.
Yeah,
that's what it's all about, dude.
At least mentally, which is half the battle, I guess. So
yeah, and see, if we wouldn't have been investing in that relationship, then you wouldn't have gone and biked 13 miles and gone the furthest you've ever gone.
Mm-hmm.
Like manually moving your body. That's probably the best way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Have you been into like running or any of that like prior to editing the podcast, or has now editing the podcast sparked this kind of interest in running or fitness?
Well, it has certainly sparked it, because, and I correlate this directly to being forced to watch every single second of the podcast.
Forced.
Well, I mean, that's probably not the best.
If you don't
way to
watch this
put it.
podcast, you're fired, Dylan.
Well, it's like it's just a part of the job. Like maybe I could phrase it differently, but yeah, I mean, I think it's really just a reminder that we are what we listen to, and we are what we consume, like information wise, whether it's like what we read or what we watch. Considering that if social media is this ingrained part of our lives now, like we might as well utilize it and fill it up with things that are inspirational and motivating and uplifting. And I think that's just a testament to like the message that you put out there, because it's had a direct impact on my desire to be physically active. I mean, I would say like I didn't have the most athletic background growing up. I found like physical activity through like dancing and musical theater, like doing marching band, like not actual competitive sports per se. But I've always like tried to stay active. And I think like since the pandemic, I've gotten in the routine of like walking multiple miles a day. It's just part of my routine. I didn't really consider that like an achievement. It's just something that I have to do to like make me feel the best that I can. And it translates over to my productivity as well. But then running is like the natural next step to like doing all of that walking. And to answer your original question, like, yes, that's had a direct influence on where I want to go. And I mean, I personally I think everybody's different in terms of how exercise, like the purpose that exercise plays in their lives. Like for me, at least right now, I don't see like the ultra like long distances as something that like I need to pursue or work up to.
Not yet. It's like a drug. Just wait.
Oh yeah.
You get a little hit of it. You're like, oh, I want some more.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. It's like you reach one goal and it's like, what's the next goal? For me, it's just about exercise is like an essential part of regulating my mood, and listening to these podcasts on a weekly basis and hearing all of these stories of like how running and that whole theme of running has translated over into different aspects of life. That's been like truly inspirational, and I can like relate to it, and it's like motivated me to like see what else is possible in terms of that. So
dude, I love that. That's great.
Yeah,
I like the thinking or the framework of my daily walks or my daily exercise isn't an achievement. It's just necessary to keep me sane and keep my body in homeostasis. It's just like, because then it becomes a non-negotiable with yourself. If you make it like a reward every day, it's easier to skip out on it. I feel like if it's like, oh, I went for a walk, yay, like I did good. But if it's just like, I have to do this every day to be a good functioning human, like,
well, yeah, I mean, I would consider it a habit, not a chore. It's or just with anything. I think if you do it on a daily basis, it just becomes like instinct, which I think it's like you've said before, like everyone needs to be addicted to something. So like, why not make it something good? Yeah. So if that's one of something that you can be addicted to, then I think it's good to like get in the habit of getting some sort of exercise daily, or sunlight, or just being outside. And just as someone who does like a lot of remote work and editing, it's so easy to fall in that trap of not indulging any of that at all. So it's definitely something to consider. Yeah,
and exercise I feel like is one of the few things that it's really hard to do too much of. Like, right. I mean, in what world is it like? I mean, there are some people I've talked to where they're overdoing it, like they're exercising too much, like it becomes unhealthy, I guess. But more so because their like priorities shift. But like as long as your priorities are in line still, you really can't exercise too much as long as you're not hurting yourself. It's like, right. So in terms of it being an addiction, that's probably one of the best addictions you can have.
Right.
Because it's
better than the alternative of, being
heroin,
right. Or just being too like sedentary and not exercising at all.
Right. Yeah. 100%. Damn, dude. I love it already. I feel like that first, you said something there. I was like, oh, we need to clip that.
Okay. So, well,
when you're editing this episode, make note of it.
Okay, I'm talking to myself. Sorry. So like, Dylan, there's a soundbite.
This is like Inception.
I know. Like, I'm in another dimension here. Yeah.
So funny. What do you think of Austin so far? First time to Texas.
Yeah, I love it. It's just been like a perfect introduction to, I mean, just hearing about and seeing like the running community, like is one thing, but also just how every state like has its own culture and feel. It's just so cool to like broaden my horizons and get to see like different aspects of the country on top of networking and doing all of this. Just like the experience of travel is something I think is, it's something that I've prioritized and wanted to do more and more of. You can always find a reason to be like, oh yeah, I don't need to do this, or like I'll do it later or something. But like if you have the opportunity to travel, like you just do it. You never know where it'll lead, who you'll meet, and how you'll see the world differently. So, yeah.
Oh, dude, traveling. I think traveling's probably had one of the biggest, like out of all the things I've done in life, probably has the biggest impact in terms of just the way I think about things. Because when you travel, you get to see that everybody's kind of the same, whether you're going across states, you go from Pennsylvania to Texas or California, or you go internationally to like Mexico or Japan or I don't know, Turkey, wherever you're at. Like we're all just humans. Like we're all basically the same. We might have like different foods and cultures and skin colors and whatever, but like on the inside, we're really, I mean, as cheesy as it is, we're all the same, really. And it's like, it makes you more aware of that, I think. And it's just like more appreciation and gratitude, I think, for just humans and like want to just love more people, I feel like.
Yeah.
Getting sappy, but it's true. It's what traveling's done for me, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I went on a cross-cultural to Italy a couple years ago.
That's cool. What's a cross-cultural? What's that mean?
It was a part of the curriculum for the film program that I was in college. So it's like you can basically study abroad. In this case, sometimes it's for a full semester, but it was for like 3 weeks, and got the opportunity to do it in Italy, which was just incredible.
That's sick.
But like I bring that up because our professor who led it was, like native, like from Italy, and he's Italian. So he spoke Italian, and like our bus driver didn't speak any English. So like he was the only way to communicate with the bus driver. And I remember there was one night where like our professor had to go do something, but the bus driver was there and he like ate with us, but like we couldn't, besides saying like ciao or whatever, like we couldn't talk to him. But saying ciao, because that's all we knew, and giving him a smile, we don't speak the same language, but like there you are, like you can still, like they're another human, like they have emotions just like you do, like you can connect with them, even if just something as simple as a smile. That's so cool. So like that's one thing that like I just love and like try to preach is it's like always possible to find common ground with people, whatever their backgrounds are, or religion, race, culture. It's just even on like the simplest level. Like I know it's so easy to get like caught up in what our differences are and what our opinions are and just be like closed-minded, but like that's something that I love to preach, and it's like a theme that I would love to continue to like put out in the content or like future films that I produce or something.
Yeah. So. Have you traveled any other countries internationally besides Italy?
The Bahamas and Costa Rica. Italy's the farthest that I've gone.
Nice.
And I'm excited. I'll be going with my brother to London in June. So
sick.
That'll be nice to, I've always wanted to go there.
Heck
so
yeah.
That'll be fun.
We're going there in April for the London Marathon.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we'll spend, I think, like 7 days exploring the rest of the UK. So we'll do like 3 days in London and then 7 days like Scotland and Wales and all that. Yeah.
Yeah.
If I find anything good, I'll let you know.
Yeah, please do. I'll need some recommendations.
Heck yeah. So editing the podcast, what did you do prior to I'm not this isn't even your full-time thing, it's like one of the many things you do, but like I would love to know your journey into media. I know you went to film school. I'd love to hear all of that.
Yeah.
Where did this all start? Where did your like initial interest in media and film come from?
So initially it was like I just had a huge fascination with the special effects in movies, and the behind the scenes, 20 crew members that are just like standing behind the camera. And I just thought that was so cool. Like you're able to show something on screen, but in reality, it's like not the case at all. And just like the art of putting all of that together in one frame visually, I thought was very cool. And then like the films that I would really watch that brought about that curiosity were like the Hobbit films. Because the Peter Jackson, the director, would always do really like well thought out behind the scenes interviewing the camera department, the makeup department, the special effects, the audio, and just really take the viewer at home through the process of like what it takes to make this film. And I was just like enamored by all of that. That's where all of the interest really like originated from.
How old were you when you got into all this?
Probably 13,
Oh, nice.
14.
Dang.
Yeah.
Was it like Lord of the Rings as a whole, or like The Hobbit specifically?
Well, it was The Hobbit because that, 2012 through like 2014, I think is when those films were released, the Hobbit ones,
yeah.
and the Lord of the Rings was a decade prior. So,
Yeah. I'm a big Lord of the Rings nerd.
Really?
Yeah, dude, I still love those movies. They're
Okay.
so good.
Well, I wouldn't consider myself very knowledgeable about all the characters. Like,
Okay,
I
I'm
know
definitely
the
not
basics.
either. Don't ask me any questions. I like the movies on like a very surface level.
Right.
But maybe it's more nostalgic than anything.
Right. I mean, they are entertaining, but honestly, it was really just for the production aspect of it is what got me interested in it. From there, if I had a camera that was lying around like that my parents had, or like one of like the first iPhones that was in the house or whatever that I could use to record some video, then I was going to do it. And special effects in iMovie, I remember like,
You do special effects in iMovie?
or yeah, like if you like download some green screen like explosion or something and then like overlay it and then key out the green.
Right.
Like I was on a very basic level. I was starting to implement some of the same concepts that a huge Hollywood production was doing on a much smaller scale. That was just so cool. Like the technology had like gotten to that point where like a little kid like me could just start implementing that sort of creativity and like bringing like a vision that I had to life. And I did all sorts of things from like stop motion with Legos, cool. And going down all these like rabbit holes on YouTube about Film Riot and Indie Mogul.
I know those guys.
Yeah, like those channels were really big. I mean, they're still doing things, but I haven't watched them. They're just not the same. I get a nostalgic feel like when I see like a recommended old Film Riot video on YouTube or something. But they literally like taught me most of what I know and like
Really?
what I implement on a daily basis. I like taught myself how to edit from YouTube. So
Just like YouTube tutorials?
yeah, YouTube tutorials. I mean, like I would be like, I want to do this effect. I'm going to look it up. And I mean, one thing that was very helpful, and like, I don't take this for granted, is like my parents, have owned a graphic design company. So they had the Adobe softwares, that I could use and experiment with. And that's how I was able to like get the knowledge foundation. So I'm certainly very thankful for that. And that has shaped my path of how I was able to like obtain and learn at like in middle school. I was really into narrative short films. So that first one that we did, it was called Angels Among Us. Probably shouldn't have said that because people will look it up. But
Is it on the internet somewhere?
No, yeah, it's still up.
I feel like everything I know about film and editing and video production is all from YouTube.
Right.
Like YouTube University is what
yeah.
I call it. But you went to film school actually.
Yeah, so I did.
Was YouTube not enough?
I don't know if peer pressure is the right word, but just everyone around me, and you're a senior in high school and everyone's applying to colleges. And one of my friends was like, how many schools did you apply to? And I was like, I haven't applied to any yet. He's like, yeah, I've applied to 10 and I'm working on more. So it's like, there's definitely pressure to go on to college, but I was considering like a gap year, but then I really wouldn't know how I would navigate that. So then literally a month before I graduated high school, I applied to one school. It's called Messiah College. It's now Messiah University. There have been some like people that I knew that went there and they had like a good program, the film program. They partnered with Temple. They did some research into it. It was really like a last minute decision. And so, yeah, I mean, that fall I went there, did my freshman year, studied film, and it was like, one of the best years I could have asked for. I don't regret it whatsoever, even though I didn't graduate. Just the people that I met there, just from like connections in the film industry from that perspective, but also just people who I consider my dear friends today.
Nice.
Like I'm going to like 3 weddings this year are all, people that that I met there. So
That's
it's
awesome.
like, I still have very good friends from there. I sang in the concert choir, all sorts of things with extracurricular projects in the film program. Like I helped some seniors out like with their project. So yeah, I really feel like I maximized my year there. And then, like I said before, I did that cross cultural at the very end in Italy. Had a conversation with my parents, and it was like, maybe I should look into more like affordable option that might have a bigger program potentially. So, given I grew up like outside of Philadelphia, I could take the train into the city. I was like, well, I should apply to Temple. So I applied there like right before like the transfer deadline got accepted there. And then I did a year there, and then the pandemic happened. It really got to the point where like everything went online, and I was like, I don't know, like really evaluating what the value is in continuing this, because I felt like I was at the point where I'm halfway through. I could do 2 more years. If I keep going and do a third year, then I might as well finish. Like if I'm gonna just go for it on my own, this is probably the time to do it. So so I dropped out in May 2020 and started full-time freelancing from there. And the rest is history. I feel like the pandemic was like horrific in many aspects. Obviously, all of the lives that were lost, but just also like the economic damage, the businesses that shut down. There's so
Unless
many.
you were a billionaire, then you
Right,
became more of a billionaire.
right. But on like on like a macro
Yeah.
level, there were a lot of like horrific things that came
Yeah.
out of it. But if there are some silver linings, I'm sure everyone has their opinions on good things that came out of it. But for me, it was that push that I needed to take the leap and go for it on my own, because I honestly think if that never happened, that I would have stayed and I would have finished. Which you never know. If I went down that path, then I could have met other people and gone on to do great things and down that path as well. Like I'll never know. But I think, I look back on it now and I'm like, it was like one of the best decisions that I ever made was to go for it full time and start freelancing and just going from there. I've been able to build up a portfolio and a network and really refine my craft and my skill set. And, I've been very blessed and fortunate to have had like a lot of like work opportunities, and just I'm so thankful to work with great people. I just feel like pretty much every business transaction or encounter that I have, it's like they're just my friends that just happen to be clients at the same time, which like
Right.
that's the best feeling in the world. Be doing it on that level where it like doesn't feel like work. Like I just feel so thankful to be able to do something that like I'm passionate about. Like sometimes I have to pinch myself. I'm like, I can get paid to like edit this. Like it's like it's because I love doing this. Yeah. So I've been really blessed to have been able to sustain that up until now. And I'm so grateful to like people like yourself who have referred me, and so many people who I've done work for and they've referred me, and just all of my business has been organic and referral based, which I know, scalability wise probably isn't that reliable, but for me, someone who was just getting started in the freelance world, it was like, wow, this is a very like humbling. So
Yeah,
yeah.
that's cool. Dude, I love when people love what they do. Because
Mhm.
I feel like it's kind of rare. Like, I feel like so many people, unfortunately, work jobs that they don't like, or they're going to school, studying something that they don't really care that much about, but like it might pay good, or their parents told them they should do it, so they just picked it. And I think part of the reason I love it so much is because I have like been in those positions, and I know how shitty it is
Right.
to my parents want me to go to law school and do political science and all this, and I'm like, I don't really love this, but I'm gonna do it because I don't really know what else to do.
Mhm.
And I knew there was always something else I wanted to do, but I didn't know what it was. And so when people find that thing that they love doing, to where you can like honestly say like, wow, this doesn't feel like work. I can't believe people pay me for it. I just love that so much because it's so rare, I feel
Mhm.
like, to find that thing. So once you do find it, that's so valuable.
Yeah. I don't know if it's the right phrase to use. I was like born to do this, but like sometimes you have like that feeling. I've always like let that be like the driving force and have that keep me going, because I remember like the first orientation week that I had at college, my freshman year, everyone's meeting each other and like asking, what's your major? What's your major? Like, oh, I'm engineering, I'm chemistry. And don't get me, I'm not bashing those at all. Those are like very like respectable and sought after degrees, but people would react to me saying, oh, I'm a film and media major, and like their smile would just like drop off their face and be like, what's that? A very like honest reaction that I wasn't expecting. And I remember like one of the first film classes that I had, the professor, one of the questionnaires on our sheet was like, what do your parents think about you studying film? Like there's a big like stigma against it. So which I think is kind of like counterintuitive. Like you're here to study this field and yet you're making students feel like they shouldn't be doing it, you know? So, but like I said before, like I had this like burning desire. This is what I want to do. When I was like 15, I was like, this is what I'm doing for a career.
That's so cool.
And I've like let that be the driving force and really guide me through all of those like doubtful moments where obviously like not intentional people will like place doubts in your head. Like, is this the career that you should be doing? Like, why don't you do something that on paper is more lucrative?
I hate that.
But I think that's common that people just do that for the salaries and they don't follow the passion. And sometimes the passion doesn't create profit, at least at first. So what's the Kevin O'Leary quote? The salary is the drug they give you to forget your dreams. Like, yeah. So,
that's good.
Like which I think it's true. I've just always felt like this is the career that I was like meant to be in. And I've been like so adamant about that. So
yeah, I love that, dude. Was it pretty tough going to freelance, like from straight out of school to just, okay, now I got to figure out how to make money doing this thing?
I've been like very fortunate that like I have parents who I owe everything to my parents. Like they, you know, the ways
quite
that
literally.
Yeah. But I mean like career wise, like, on top of all of that, but, the ways that they've just supported me, not just financially, but encouraging me to do what I was passionate about.
That's cool.
And I mean, they're creative. They have a creative business. They're entrepreneurs themselves. So I think it was, you know, if they were in a different career path and they weren't creative and they weren't entrepreneurs, then maybe they would see things differently. So I feel like, you know, I wouldn't be where I am without like their support. Fortunately, you know, they did like a lot of stuff in like graphic design, web design. Some of their clients, it kind of goes hand in hand. Like they have websites and they might also need like a video produced. So I was able to get my feet wet and my foot in the door with like some opportunities like that, which, you know, I don't take for granted. I understand that not everybody has that, but I think that definitely helped kickstart my career because I was able to do video projects for like actual companies and get real world experience like right off the bat. And from there, it kind of snowballed really quickly into like all of a sudden, you know, I had my portfolio. It wasn't very good. That's the first step that you need to take is you need to just be relentless and you need to put yourself out there. And even if it's like stuff that you're not necessarily as passionate about, like if you want to break into this in the video and the film industry, like you just volunteer on sets or do videos for free and just network as much as you can, and build up that portfolio. And from there, so many doors will like open to you that you might not even realize if you just build that foundation and just work tirelessly and be so persistent about that and put your mind to it. And you don't necessarily have to have paying clients to get videos under your belt and start implementing your skills. You can learn editing from YouTube. I'm living proof of that. You can do like spec commercials, pick a company, make a commercial for them, or you could reach out and say like, I'd love to do this for you for free. You know, it does require like some money if you're gonna like purchase equipment or softwares or whatever, but like you really just have to invest the time to develop your skills in a way that are a service that's going to be marketable and sought after by, you know, potential businesses and clients. So it doesn't happen overnight. I've been doing it for a couple of years and I feel like I've barely scratched the surface. You make mistakes and you learn from them, fail as quickly as you can so that you can get those mistakes behind you and not make those mistakes again because of how those mistakes made you feel. Because that's the best teacher. Like if you're in a classroom and you see a PowerPoint, it's like, don't do this. Okay, you're just memorizing it for an exam. But if you go on a shoot and the audio is peaking or the shot's out of focus or it's overexposed or it's not framed properly, you can go down the list. You do that and you're surely going to make it a priority to not do that the next time. And it's going to be ingrained in you because you messed up the first time. You can be given opportunities like I did, like to be able to do stuff through a couple referrals from my parents. But yeah, I've benefited from nepotism a lot of people have, but when you get your foot in the door somewhere, you have to sustain that success. You have to do a good job. You have to be a good person to work with. For the most part, it's not like you get an opportunity and it's just guaranteed to be sustained for a long time. Just with any business, it could all fall apart instantly. You really have to like cherish every opportunity you have and take everything so seriously and not get complacent and keep your reputation respectable, because every person that you work with is going to like have an opinion about you, and that's going to determine if they refer you to people. I'm sure you can relate, like you're building a brand, you have an audience, all of that stuff is very important, and you have to make sure that it's constantly in check, and it takes a lot of effort. It's not like you build a business and for the most part like you can sit back and relax. It's just, it needs constant like monitoring and attention. So was it hard to get into freelancing? Like I'm still getting into it. It's still an ongoing process, really.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love the saying of success is just opportunity met with preparation.
Right.
It's like you could have a million opportunities land on your plate, but if you're not prepared and or willing to take those opportunities, it's like then they're useless. So it's like you had the opportunity, like your parents have this design firm. You're like, oh, they have some clients that need some video work. I love video. Oh, this is perfect. Like you saw the opportunity, you took advantage of it. It's like,
right.
How many people are going to be in that same position and not take advantage? Because they don't see it, or they're not prepared for it, or whatever. So
Sure.
I don't feel like you don't need to defend that at all. Like I feel like you're almost like, oh, I had this like leg up.
It was certainly a helpful like advantage, I would say, but
Yeah.
I don't know. It wasn't everything. It was a part of the journey. It wasn't. It's not 100% responsible for the success that I've had.
Yeah, I've heard this. I think it was about Donald Trump or something. Whatever your opinion is on Donald Trump, he's a businessman. He's built successful businesses, and his I think his dad gave him like $1 million loan or something to like start his first hotel or something.
Right.
And people give him shit for that because they're like, oh well, if my dad gave me $1 million, I could do this. But I'm like, could you though? Like what percentage of people do you think, if they got $1 million, could figure out how to actually build a successful business? Like most people would probably just fucking blow it away because they don't know what they're doing.
Because it's like, it's like the $1 million is like nothing in comparison to what it was grown into.
Right.
So yeah,
I
get that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not the hand that you were dealt. It's just how you play that hand. And it goes both ways. It's like, whether you're born into like a rich family and your parents are still together, you have no issues, you never lost a loved one, like no trauma, real trauma in your life. It's like you didn't really choose to not have trauma, but it's like, how do you take that good opportunity that you were given and capitalize on it and make the most of it? And same goes for the other way of like, oh, you grew up with like a single parent and your brother passed away and you had all this trauma and you like lost a friend, like whatever it is. It's like you didn't choose for those things to happen to you, but how are you going to react and how are you going to play that hand that you were given? So it's like, I think it can apply to no matter what situation you're in, good or bad. It's just, that's the only thing we really have control over. It's just, how do we react to things? Like what choices do we make? And so I think dwelling too much on like how you got somewhere, like what situation you were in, I don't know. I don't see much merit to that.
That's very thought-provoking.
Yeah, you're welcome. Just kidding. Dude, I'd love to know. So you've been editing the podcast for over or close to a year. I think we've done 45 episodes. This will be the 50th episode, which seems good. It's a nice round whole number to have Dylan on. Over 45 episodes. What has this process been like? What have you learned? Was this the first episode or the first podcast you took on? The first podcast client?
It actually was.
Was there? I'm sure there was some sort of learning process. Well, I know there was because I was a part of it partially. But like on your end, I'm curious. Like, what has this experience been like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I consider this like a joint effort. We've been refining the process for it based on the message that you want to convey, like through the podcast and its purpose, and like me executing it on a technical level. Like I think we've finally, we've had it for a couple months now, but like it took us like a couple episodes to get into that groove, and like now I feel like we have that formula together. I had never worked on a podcast before, but I think I was up for the challenge. The thing that's just been really fascinating to me going through all of this is like serendipitous is the right word. Like all of the timing of being able to work on the podcast and just like the influx of all of these AI editing tools has been like literally aligned perfectly. So as I was like learning and discovering the most efficient ways to edit the podcast, it's all of a sudden there's all of these tools to like make your life easier raises some eyebrows as to like, could this make the whole profession of a video editor like obsolete? Seeing these tools and what they can do, like just on a really fundamental level, it kind of makes you nervous a little bit. I think there's like reason to be optimistic.
I don't think it's going away.
Yeah.
Any art form, I don't think it's going away. And video editing, producing is an art form.
Right. There's like a plugin I use to like synchronize all of the files. Like you send me a folder of, and it's existed for a while now. It's called like Pluralize. People in the editing space will know what it is. The 2 audio files, the 2 camera files, at least for in-person podcasts. And it's like you have all 4 of those. I can like synchronize all the waveforms in one click, as opposed to having to line up the waveforms manually.
Right.
So that saves time. And then I can use this amazing plugin, AI-based plugin called Autopod, which is able to basically take care of the multi-camera editing in a matter of seconds, whereas before you'd have to do the cuts manually. That's a game changer.
I've seen the like time, like a screenshot or screen recording of when it does that cut. It is crazy to watch. It'll take a 3-hour podcast episode and completely cut it in like 4 seconds.
Right.
It's nuts.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's not, if you see that, it's not sped up or it's not hyperbole or exaggerated. You know, like you do have to pay for it. But I think time is money. Like the more efficiently you're able to do things, then like the more opportunities the more time that gives you to be able to like invest in other aspects of work. So it's good to like plug into the workflow. It can't take care of everything by any means. Like I would say I spend like 4 or 5 hours on every single podcast episode. But then you may think like, oh, well, you're using Autopod, right? It does it all for you in 10 seconds. Yeah, it does one aspect of it in 10 seconds. Which, you know, it probably saves me an hour of having to manually make the multicam cuts. I like to take a more custom approach to it. I really like to be very methodical about making sure that nothing falls through the cracks. It may appear like everything is okay. Like they're talking, there's nothing to cut out, but they could be talking about something like, hey, we need to cut this out, or like thinking about like what to talk about next, or like taking a pause. Like you never know. And eventually there may be AI tools that can like recognize that. But as of right now, it's like you have to just manually go through the entire recording. So like that's what I do once I have the multicam in place. I can basically sit back and like watch it. I usually watch it sped up. And then it gives me the opportunity to like leave markers throughout the sequence, the reels, like finding good moments to isolate for those, and like YouTube clips and stuff, really refine them out, cut out all the dead space. I put them in like the vertical format, add all the captions and graphics, and like the B-roll images to make everything dynamic. I add like scale ins and all of the stuff that's really good to like optimize short form content. Like right now, just in terms of AI, like my whole philosophy with it, and this could age really poorly, and I'll, could be totally wrong in a couple of years, but as of right now, like my conclusion for people in the video space, especially post-production, is like AI is not going to replace video editors, but video editors that embrace AI are going to replace the video editors that don't. So that's sort of the framing that I'm taking into this, is like these AI tools are like incredible. People think that they could go too far. Obviously there's like the new, I think it's called like Sora.
It's wild.
It can like just generate videos from like a couple prompts.
It's scary good.
So I think at a certain point, like that might make stock footage obsolete.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I always feel like creativity is not a luxury, but rather a feature of humanity. And so I feel like there's always going to be this like inherent need for humans to create art and express themselves through that art, and have other humans subsequently relate to that art. And there's this TED talk that like Ethan Hawke, the
actor.
Yeah, it was a couple years ago, but he was basically saying, and he wasn't talking about AI at all, or at least I don't think so from what I remember, but he had like this really profound way of saying things. You might not be into like poetry or you might not read books or anything like that. You might not want to watch a particular type of film until like a loved one passes away, or like someone breaks your heart, and then you feel alone and you need to seek out some sort of validation of like, has someone else in history like experienced what I'm feeling right now? Because I feel alone. That may be in the form of a poem that was written 200 years ago. You may read it and you may be like, wow, that's how I feel. Through art, humans can sort of find consolation that I think is just like essential. I think the word he used was like sustenance.
Yeah. I don't know what that word means.
Yeah. I think
I've heard it a lot.
Yeah, I think it's just an aspect of life that's just like essential. It's not just something that's like optional. Like, oh, we choose to be creative because we're bored. No, we need to be creative because that's how we see the world.
It's like your daily walks.
Well, I don't know about
There's
that.
a full circle.
Yeah. But it's like that's
Yeah.
So
I love that. I want to go back. Hold on.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Because you said creativity or relatability specifically, like the relatability aspect of art is what's necessary about art. Is that right?
Yeah.
Because I never actually considered it that way. It makes so much sense though.
A human creation and a human relating to that creation because it was created by a human.
Yeah.
And I think like AI it's getting to the point where it can, AI can write music. It can like write books. It can create paintings. So maybe we won't be able to distinguish. We already can't distinguish like what's AI produced and what's human produced. But I think that is irrelevant because it's not going to stop humans from having that urge to create. When people follow you, they're following you because you are a fellow human being with a life that is relatable in so many, like I said, it's always possible to find common ground. It's like, everyone can like relate to people in some way. Fellow runners who follow you, like they want to relate to a human being. So it's like, what if you were able to type in Chat GPT, like generate running influencer Instagram account and post once per day and do some podcasters, and it was able to just spit something out like that. I feel like it wouldn't hold the same value at all because it's not an actual like living person who is experiencing life in the same way that the viewer is. If that makes any sense.
It makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just maybe it's almost like an indescribable like need that humans have to relate to other humans. I don't know where that need comes from, but I feel like we all have it.
Right.
Maybe it's like some deep down like insecurity as like humans, like we just need the validation potentially. I think you kind of mentioned that of like, oh, relatability is just the validation of why you feel some way or that you have felt some way. So it's like, oh, this makes me human because another human has also felt this way.
It may be like a podcast, like, or just in person, like you're sitting down and relating to a human being through that. You create a piece of music and it invokes some sort of emotion that brings someone back to a certain time.
We're just emotional creatures.
Right.
Whatever you can do to tap. I mean, that's what makes a movie good, is if it touches your emotions or not. Mm-hmm. Not if it like looks good, but even if it does look good, it's making you feel a certain way. So it's all about emotions. Right.
Absolutely.
And that's what art is. And maybe that's like the missing aspect to AI art, is that it doesn't have the emotion because you know that it doesn't come from a soul, like a human soul that like put something into it.
Yeah. My only thing with this is I feel like it's a little premature to criticize like the AI's ability to create art. It's just moving so quickly and the innovation. I mean, it's a very exciting time just to be alive, quite frankly, but also like in the creative space, just all of the resources and tools that are available. A year ago, a lot of this AI stuff was like in its infancy.
Or like a Will Smith spaghetti video.
Right. Or I don't want to say infancy because it's been in development for a lot of years before that, like probably
rudimentary.
It just seems like it's just exponentially increasing in functionality. Definitely. And that's why I'm kind of hesitant to criticize it and say, well, AI could never do this. AI can never do that. But I think no matter how good AI gets, if it could generate that fictional influencer account just based on a couple of prompts, there's still going to be billions of human beings who are seeking out art on that level. You could consider art a social media profile or something. And it's like you're following that profile to get value because there's another human on the other side. There's that inherent need to relate to it and be poured into through that content because it was created by a human. I think no matter how good AI gets, I still think there's going to be the need to create and the need to relate to art that is like created by humans. That's sort of how I'm justifying it in my head. Maybe I'm just in panic mode deep on the inside that AI is going to take over and replace like my job, but I don't know.
I've got one for you.
Yeah.
What if, because AI itself is human created, what if because of that inherent trait that anything that AI creates, could that therefore be a byproduct of like a human creation? Even though there's like that middleman of the AI tool itself, because somebody has to like input into the AI.
Right.
So, and the AI tool itself was created by humans. So it's like without humans, then those wouldn't exist.
Right. Yeah. I think that's like,
I don't know.
that might be a checkmate there. Like, I don't have a rebuttal for that. I guess at the end of the day, like you can trace it back, but like, yeah, I mean, this just fries my brain, like, to begin with. And again, maybe it's just me being overly optimistic and trying to like conceal the panic that I have. I love what I do. I love creating videos, and you don't want it to go away, or anything that you love doing, you don't want it to go away. So it's like,
this is a conversation you have after you smoke a fat joint or something. It's like,
I promise we didn't. Yeah.
So this sounds like something Joe Rogan would be talking about. Like,
yeah, I'm sure he has.
The dark side of AI, and it's so interesting though because it's so true, and it's like an inevitable thing that we're gonna have to navigate, and I think we kind of already are, obviously, because we're talking about it right now. But
there are so many industries that will become ostracized. There was this book. It's like Andrew Yang. He ran for president a while ago. He wrote this book all about automation and AI and why like we should really be worried. Put the video industry aside. Like we can talk about that all day, but it really, if you take a step back and look at things, that's just the smallest percentage of all the industries that are out there. And like when you're thinking about like the health of the economy, and we're gonna have to like redefine what work is. Like things that were not really considered like monetarily valuable, we'll have to like start compensating for that. Like he proposes like universal basic income. AI can be seen as like a tool, like a hammer is to a carpenter. In the editing context, Autopod is a tool for the editor. It certainly helps and it's a piece of the puzzle, but it has to be set in motion by somebody. So maybe that could be like more jobs will be created. I think the decline in jobs, the jobs that'll be created from AI, I could be wrong, but the jobs that'll be created from AI probably won't happen as rapidly as the jobs that it'll take away. But I think everyone's guess is as good as the next person's, and we all got to like work together to try to figure something out.
It's kind of like when cars came around and people that had horse related businesses, and like, I don't know, you're like you had the business that went around and picked up all the horse crap off the streets where everybody had horses and nobody had cars, and people had all these cars, and they're like, well, if nobody has horses anymore, then I'm gonna go out of business. And it's like, it's kind of the same thing. I mean, I don't know if that's a great example, but it's like that's the human evolution of like forever that humans have been around.
Or you specialize in creating like wired headphones, and it's like now no more wired headphones. But I guess those companies just adapt and make wireless headphones. So it's like
adapt or die. It's like survival of the fittest.
Right. Like you've always I mean, not just in business, but like in life, it's just you always have to be like adapting and changing and like staying up to date with like the newest technologies and planning ahead and see the trend of where things are going and prepare for it.
So obviously the podcast reels are a main piece of the puzzle for the podcast. And that's where I feel like you put the most creativity into, because the episode itself is like pretty straightforward. You can't really do anything creatively with that.
Right.
So what's your approach to, I know you said you basically watched the whole episode, sped up, look for those key moments. What are some of those things you look for that are like, oh, this should make it into a clip? Because right now we do like 1 to 2 clips, like short form vertical clips for Instagram or YouTube Shorts. Like what do you look for out of like a 2-hour conversation where you're like, this should be the 60 seconds that gets clipped out? What's that process like? Because to me, that's probably got to be one of the hardest parts of editing a podcast, is like that's like the ultimate decision when, especially when we're only doing one clip. It's
Right.
like,
Generally speaking, if you're just talking about podcasts in general, like it's very subjective, but for our purposes, like we've sort of through trial and error, we've identified the types of clips that do better. In our case, it's like you're mentioning running in the first couple of seconds, whether that's through the form of like a statistic, a controversial statement, like an intriguing question, just something like within the first 3 seconds to get the listener interested. And that may mean having to reorder the way that things were said organically, just so you put that moment first and then you just do it in reverse order and then the rest of it pans out. It's definitely something that I've learned. Like I thought that everything should just be chronological in order in the reel, but as we go on, it's like I find myself really like rearranging things.
it's like, you mean like you find the hook for the video or the reel, and then like, but maybe 30 minutes later in the conversation, they said something else that still relates to the hook, but it was just a different part of the conversation.
Sure. Yeah. Or it may just even be like they said a couple of sentences consolidated into one answer. It's just rearranging that answer. So sometimes like I'll find something later in the episode and bring that back, but it could be on like a smaller scale too, where it's like back-to-back sentences. It's like, oh, I'm going to put the second one first. It's irrelevant if the viewer does not watch beyond the hook. The rest of the reel is not going to matter because it's not going to be watched. I mean,
Right.
But that's kind of the mentality I do, is like we need to find the absolute best moment and use it as the hook. The theme that I love that you talk about is you've had people from all different walks of life on this podcast. They all have different goals. They've all achieved different things, whether it's athletically or just through like business, or they've overcome just like incredible like medical situations that they've had. The common denominator with all of it is running, and using that as a metaphor for just life and setting goals, accomplishing them, and being persistent and setting your mind to something, and like having that mental strength. So that's really the themes that I've been looking out for, because I know like a lot of, most of your audience are runners. So just finding that theme to weave in to whatever else is being said, even if it might not have anything to do with running, if we can tie it back at the end. If we're talking about like community or something, it's like, okay, well, like I find community through running. You can relate everything back to it, which I think is a great way, a great theme to like build like your page and your brand around, because it's so relatable to so many different things.
Yeah, I think it's so cool that you've made that observation, because I definitely, as much as I wish I could say it was intentional, it would definitely is not really intentional. I think it's just that's what I'm like gravitated towards. That's what I'm attracted to, is like I like running, I like hearing cool stories, and so I think unintentionally, maybe subconsciously, I just like seek out people that happen to be runners, but that also happen to have great stories. And it just like ends up being this really cool dynamic of people with these incredible stories, but they also happen to be runners. And it's like, I wish I could say it was intentional, but I don't know if it actually is. And that's the whole reason I started the podcast, was just like find interesting people that I want to talk to, have interesting conversations with. If people want to listen, that's great. If they don't want to listen, I don't really care. But it's like, we basically had a podcast today, like in the car ride or at the gym or while we were out running, biking. Like,
right.
It's just conversations. And now we just have a light with cameras. It's all the same. We're talking about the same things we've been talking about all day.
Right.
But we just get to share it with people, which is cool, because then we can hopefully provide some inspiration or education or impact other people in some way. So yeah, that's such a cool observation though. I like that. I think I'm going to lean into it even more because I think it's cool. Damn. Yeah. And I've had people ask me before too, last week actually, they were like, do you ask certain questions on the podcast to try and elicit a certain response so you can turn it into like a viral clip? And I'm like, people do that? And they're like, yeah, like we were just on this guy's podcast last week and they had all these like predetermined questions of like, okay, this should get a good viral response. And I'm like, I don't want to do a podcast like that. It's so unnatural. Like people don't interact like that in real life.
Right.
It's like you're creating this fake thing for the internet, and I'm like, that's not what it's about.
I think that's what's even more impressive about the podcasts that you've been doing, or just like your content in general. It's just like the authenticity and it's just like the genuine nature that like all of the sound bites that we've put out, it's just been through like natural, like raw moments. And like, people have gotten like very vulnerable. Like on your podcast and bring those moments out. And that's the other thing that we were talking about before is you could hypothetically try to do these like artificial sound bites and just sit down and be like, okay, we're going to act like we're having a really in-depth conversation, but it's really just because statistically or analytically speaking, this is going to perform well. But even if no one listens to the long form version from start to finish, it took sitting down and recording for 1 or 2 hours to bring about that emotion and allow them to open up and to become vulnerable, to make those sound bites possible in a natural and organic way. So I think that just sets you apart right there. If you're saying that like other people are sort of like cutting corners and just trying to do things in a more
it's like calculated,
produced way. Yeah. Calculated, produced way. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so unnatural. I hate that shit. It's like, that's how a lot of influencers are, but just like you meet these people in person and you see them and they're so different from what you see online. It's like, it's so fake. I can't stand it. But anyways, and also I feel like we should say our podcast at this point, because it's like, I mean, I'm the one in person recording it, but like without the behind the scenes of you doing everything, editing, putting it all together every single week for 45 weeks in a row now, making the clips. Like we've had several clips go viral on Instagram, like,
which not everyone is going to go viral.
No.
It's just part of it.
Depends on how you define viral too.
Right. Which you would know better than I would in terms of like the metrics there. It's definitely been cool to watch a couple of them like really take off, and like they reach people, they get shared a lot, and it's just to see people comment and like really resonate with it. That makes it all worth it.
Yeah.
Like you do a bunch of these podcasts, and some might be better than others, like, and they might be received differently from podcast to podcast. It's all worth it if just some form of the podcast, whether it's like one reel like takes off and it can like impact one person. I know it's like cliche, like you always say that, like if I can impact one person, then it's all worth it. But it's true. Like it makes it worth the pursuit in a way.
100%. You used to have a podcast yourself, right?
I did. Yeah. It's still on Spotify. It's a Dialogue with Dylan.
Dialogue with Dylan.
That was in early 2021. And that really sparked from all of the stuff that happened in 2020, like all of the polarization, really. And I just wanted to create a platform where you come on, share your opinion. You're not going to feel like you're going to just be criticized for it or be like talked over and not be able to like express your opinion. There's debates over like the pandemic and health policy. And then there's the controversy over the racial protests. And then there's the election and the political debates. And it just felt like it was just controversy after controversy after controversy. I've talked to, people in like generations above me, and they've saying like, I've never seen the country like this divided.
That's a wild time.
Right. So that's like, I started that because I felt, again, it's back to that common ground theme. I just want to help people see eye to eye in some way, not entirely, but just we're both humans. Like we can like maybe agree to disagree, but at least like I have the respect and dignity for you as a human being. And like you can have that opinion, and we see things differently because we have different perspectives, and like that's okay. But at the end of the day, like we can sit and we can talk about it, and that's like there's beauty in that. So
it's powerful. Yeah. How many episodes did you do?
I think like 8.
Damn, why'd you stop?
It was just hard to, and that's the one thing I admire about your podcast is like, it's tough to find guests, like interesting people to talk. Like I interviewed my,
it is, but it isn't.
Right.
Continue. Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, I interviewed a couple of my college professors, like my psychology professor. We actually talked about like the psychology of polarization and like confirmation bias and echo chambers and just like the all of like the cognitive reasons for like why we were like polarized. So that was really cool. And then I had my history professor on, and we just talked about all these like, prevalent issues. He's like a expert in like American history, and I sat down, I prepared for them. It was good to like build up conversational skills. And you've said you feel like you've improved with your conversation skills from doing the podcast. So it's not, it's like, regardless if people listen to it, it's like, there's so many other benefits for like networking or improving your conversation skills, or, or it could impact one person or maybe a couple. It's like, there's so many other like tangible things that maybe like you might consider them like a byproduct. It's only successful if like it has this number of views per episode. Yeah, there's other ways to derive success.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Damn. That's cool you experienced all that within just 8 episodes. Imagine if you would have done 50.
Right. Well, you would know better than me having done 50. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I will say, I feel like literally every episode I do, I get just like a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better. And it's like, I mean, it's just like running. Again, everything comes back to running or fitness or health. It's like each episode individually seems so insignificant in terms of like how I'm growing or what I'm getting out of it. But then you look back 50 episodes, I'm like, damn, I've gotten so much better, like just more natural, like better conversationalist. So it's cool you got that we got some of that within 8 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think you'll ever go back and like bring it back?
I wouldn't rule it out. I mean, that's why they're still up.
Yeah.
I mean, I always was thinking while I was recording those, like, it's going to be so cool to like look back on those and listen to them again. This moment in history, all of these things were happening. And like, I talked to my college professor about like the state of the country, and, it's just me thinking big or whatever, but it's another byproduct of doing it, that it's like how you can view it down the road, or honestly how people in the future who didn't live through that time can look back on it and be like, okay, these are two people like having a discussion about like what's happening right now. That's how we learn and understand history, is through primary sources and reading about what's happened, or in this case listening to something describing what happened. So yeah, and I think you'll be able to do that with these podcast episodes as well. They'll be cool to look back on it and listen to. So
Probably cringe a lot, I'm sure.
Yeah, but then it allows you to see how much you've grown. So.
Exactly. Yeah, that's dude, do you ever go back and look like that first short film you made? Do you ever go back and look at that and watch it and be like, oh, why did I cut it like that? Or why did I make this shot? Or it's like, do you ever do that?
Yeah, I haven't, for that particular film, I haven't done it in a while. I probably should. But yeah, I mean, absolutely. I watched stuff that I shot a couple months ago and I'm like, man, I should have done it like this. Or I can just like nitpick things all day. So it's, I don't think that'll like ever go away, but it's just a sign that you're growing and you're learning. So
yeah, it's a part of the creative process for sure. Yeah, I don't think you'd want to look back and be like, oh, I was so good back then. I did a really good job. Maybe you want some aspect of that. Like, oh, I did a pretty good job of that. But I think for the most part, you want to look back and have some cringiness or
it's a combination of cringing, but also being proud of where you were in that time based on what you had and what knowledge you had. If I can't be too hard on myself, like my first short film I made when I was 15, like that wouldn't be right. I had the like initiative to do that. I saw it from start to finish and I stuck with it, and I was like confident enough to put it out there, and despite what negative feedback I might get from it. If that didn't happen, then where would I be now if I didn't take that first step? You got to, it's a good balance. Like for sure you're going to cringe, but also you have to have some level of pride in where you were at that time.
Yeah. So. And I feel like thinking that way too probably gives you more confidence in your current endeavors too. Because if you think about, I had the courage to do it then, like why couldn't I do it now?
Right.
Like you said, like, putting yourself out there and continue and see it through to the end.
Right.
Heck yeah. Damn, dude, this has been fun.
It's been a blast.
Out of all of the 45 episodes we've done together, which one's your favorite?
Well, it might be the one that's, I guess it'll be released.
This one.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, obviously, yeah. Was it a trick question? Yeah.
It could be.
No. I think you asked me that earlier today. It was like, it's hard to choose. I mean, I've just like had the pleasure to hear like so many just like inspirational stories, and that just really give you perspective. You just really need to like be thankful for like everything you have and not take anything for granted. And like, those are my favorite ones. They really just allow you to just like step back. I think the stuff that I'm going through is hard, really. Like I just need to have a lot more gratitude after the podcast. It's like, it's technically like work for me. Like I have to do it. I'm going through it. But afterwards I'm like, wow, like that was so insightful and just like moving. They leave me feeling inspired like that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I love that. I think the one coming out in 2 days from when we're recording this is the one with Mike Thompson. That one That one definitely made me the most emotional out of any episode I've ever recorded. I had like, I don't think I fully shed a tear, but I had some tears welling up for sure because his story is just so wild.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that one, are you done editing that one yet?
Well, yeah, I was going to give you a progress update,
Oh, nice.
but yeah, so yeah, I've got to finish up the reels, but I was last uploading everything to YouTube besides
Nice.
the reels, so got to finish
Nice.
those up and they'll be ready to go for Monday.
Dude, I think that one's going to do really well.
Oh yeah.
I hope it does. I hope he sells 1 million books.
Well, I told you I'm watching through the episode and I'm leaving like markers of like, oh, this might be good, this might be good, and I'm realizing, why am I doing this every 30 seconds? Because I'm like, and it's a over 2 hour episode. I'm like, man, it's gonna be tough to like pick one or two moments of this because it just had so many bits of like wisdom to just share.
Yeah.
So
Well, this is why I pay you to do that.
I know, yeah. Yeah, now I'm realizing why. Yeah.
No, dude, you've done such a good job. I'm so grateful that you've been able to help out. And I think that you've crushed the last 45 episodes. Hope we keep doing more. I presume we will, but yeah, dude, I appreciate you for all your work, all your creativity, and you're so easy to work with too. Like,
thank you.
The fact that we've been able to knock out 45 episodes and our only communication is through email, I think it's pretty impressive.
Oh yeah.
Because it's like we send like 2 emails a week. One for me sending you the episode files, and then one for you emailing me the finished episode. And it's like, I know early on we had like more back and forth, but now it's so simple.
It's like I feel like I knew you before,
Right.
like, but I like met you for the first time in person today. I'm so glad that like we've done this because now I feel like it's gonna make the work and the videos we do like even stronger. So
100%.
Yeah.
What else do you do with your time outside of editing this podcast?
I do play piano.
Damn, can you play Interstellar?
It would take me some time to learn.
Okay.
But yeah. So
That's Bree's New Year's resolution.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I took classical piano lessons like when I was like started at 6. So I can't play the classical pieces anymore, but the knowledge and foundation has stuck with me. So
I wish I could play an instrument.
yeah, I played
Or took the time to learn, I guess.
Yeah, I played trumpet in middle school and high school, and then I sang in the choir up through when I left school.
Nice.
So like,
what is the range called? There's like baritone.
bass, tenor, alto, soprano.
Which one are you?
I was a bass.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, I was a tenor in middle school, and then when I got to high school and college, I was a bass. So
Damn.
yeah,
Got that deep voice.
I'm pretty musical. There are definitely people who are exceptionally more talented than me. You can put a sheet of music in front of them and they can just play it without like they can sight read. Like I can't do that. Like I more do it just for the just to retain the skill because I think it's cool. And if you it's like running, like if you stop doing it or whatever, it's like you're gonna lose it. You got to keep working that muscle. But yeah, I would say that's like one of my creative outlets outside of work is playing piano.
What's your favorite song to play?
Put me on the spot there. I like I'm a big like classic rock like fanatic.
Oh.
Like I have like a vinyl collection. It's like something that my dad has gotten me into. So I like playing it's like playing some like Elton John songs and Billy Joel and songs like that, like those guys that like have a piano background and some of their songs are like structured around the piano.
Dude, I love music. Like obviously, I mean, most humans do.
Yeah.
But instruments are just so cool. Like last night, Bree and I went to this concert. It was Donovan Frankenreiter. You know him at all? He's like a Jack Johnson kind of genre. But
Oh, okay.
it was just like just watching people play music live, especially like watching somebody just shred a guitar or like play the drums or play the piano, whatever it is. It's like it's so cool. I wish I could do it. I wish I took the time to learn how to play an instrument. I just have a lot of respect because I know how long it takes, how much work you have to put in to actually play an instrument and do it well.
Yeah.
And like kind of get to the point where it becomes second nature. Do you play any other instruments? You said trumpet?
Yeah, I've It's been a couple of years since I played trumpet. Yeah. I played in orchestra pits for like musicals. I utilized my trumpet skills in so many ways growing up. So like, I don't regret it at all, but tough to practice, when you have like neighbors in the door, the wall next to you. Yeah, no, but in all seriousness, like, yeah, it's just, I felt like, I'm going to go and I'm going to sustain the skills of one instrument, and I chose the piano.
Yeah,
So
that's dope. That's cool.
mhm.
What's you said you like when I ask this to other people, so I'm gonna ask you, what is like the ultimate vision for Dylan? Like, do you have like a big goal of like, I want to be here in 5 years, 10 years, like some dream? You're like, I gotta. This is what I'm working towards.
I've thought about that. Like, I think there's like a literal career answer to that, and then there's like a deeper answer, I guess. I would say like I would love to build a team around the business that I currently have, because it's been majority myself, and like I'll hire other independent contractors from time to time. But I'd love to get some like a consistent editing team and really build like a rapport like with that team, and just being able to provide sustainable creative opportunities to other people, I think would be really cool. From there, I think like the natural progression for me is like to move into more of like a creative direction role. In order to like scale and take on more work, you have to delegate stuff out. But as we talked about, it's so hard to give up like creative control like that. So, but I feel like if I can do that and build a team and scale and take on more work, and then I can take on work that I'm like more like passionate about. And, because there's a lot of like projects that I'm so like thankful to have, but they're, it might be like corporate stuff or like webinars or more things that are,
They're not as glamorous.
yeah, or they're not the ideal like project that like excites me to work on. I am so thankful to to have opportunities like that on my plate, because I know it can be very difficult and business can dry up. So I remain thankful for every chance that I get. I just have a problem with not saying no to projects. I can continue saying yes to projects that I get a team around that, and it's a collaborative effort. Then we can continue building and growing, and I can be more overseeing, being like more selective with the work that I want to take on, and like niching that down a little bit more, I think. And then on a deeper level, I guess, so that's like for a career, like I just really love just the whole idea or pursuit of just helping like people find common ground. Like I've really thought about this, and it's like, what like message do you want to convey like through your work or through your personality? It's really just open-mindedness and helping people see eye to eye. So I think if I were to like do like more projects that I was passionate about, like that were more narrative based, like then that would be the theme of them. So,
Finding common ground.
yeah, like it's always possible to
like that.
find common ground, and I also just love the messages that like I get from these podcast episodes. It's like just having perspective and just being thankful for everything that you have. Like there's always something to be thankful for.
Yeah.
So like those are the themes that like I'm passionate about sharing with the world, I guess. And I think I'd love to do that like through my work going forward as like a long-term goal, like implementing that in some way, whether that's through narrative work or through social content. Like I made a short film about this a couple years ago that was just the same sentiment that I just described, with the themes around that. That's what I would conclude right now as what the goals going forward would be.
I love that. So build a business with a team, move into more creative direction role, and then spread more of the message of, or help more people find common ground. Is that the best way to
Yeah.
put that?
Yeah. And I think, a podcast is like an incredible format to do that.
Yeah.
So maybe I could return to the podcasting, and because I think that's that's the best way to do it, is just sit down and talk about things and just like expose ourselves to new perspectives, and I think that's like the source of a lot of our unrest is we don't do that.
Yeah.
And just like the more perspectives we have, the more accurately and better we can see the world, and the more empathetic we are, what is like the message that I want to convey, and I say that would be it.
I love that.
Yeah.
Out of all the projects you've worked on in is it 5 years of freelance? 4 years?
Yeah.
Out of all the projects, what's like your number one project that you're most proud of, or like the one that you're, I guess the most proud of? That's the right question.
It may be like dodging the question or whatever, but I'm proud of like the variety and like the people that I've been able to work with on it. It might not be like one particular like exported video file that I'm like the most proud of. The journey along the way of the collaboration and just like the people that I've met and just being able to like do what I'm passionate about on a daily basis that's what I'm most proud of. So
that's good. Let's end it there.
Yeah, sounds good.
Dude, this has been fun, man. I'm so glad we're finally able to meet in person.
Oh yeah.
All the way from Pennsylvania, all the way from our 480 message email thread.
No, I think this is the turning point where we start a new one.
We should start a new one, maybe.
Yeah.
Save up some space in our inbox.
Oh yeah, I didn't even consider that. Wow.
Storage space.
Oh yeah. Wow.
Is that a thing? I don't know. I feel like I've never. That's not an issue, I don't think.
It could be. Well, you got to clear up those Google Drive folders of all the raw footage from all 50 episodes.
Well, that's my like
your backup
paranoia freelance brain of like I can't lose these files. What if the client needs them again? But
right. Well,
I am the client.
Well, I have copies of them and I back them up, so they're technically in 3 different spaces right now.
And they're on YouTube forever.
Yeah,
if I really needed it.
4 different spaces and on all of those, the audio platforms too. I think we're pretty safe, but okay. I don't want to jinx anything. So, yeah.
Okay. This is fun, dude. If anybody wants to connect with Dylan, talk about freelance, podcast, piano, walking, any of these amazing things you do, where's the best place for people to find you?
The best place is delaneyvideo.com. I have a contact form on there. There's pretty much 100% chance that I'll respond if you reach out to me on there.
Pretty much 100%.
Yeah. Because it just goes straight to my inbox, and I'm very on top of my email. But if you want to talk about freelance or business related things, like I'd love to do that. I'm on Instagram at Dylan G Delaney.
Beautiful.
So, yeah.
I love it, dude. This is fun.
Yeah. Likewise,
dude. Inception. Dylan's everywhere.
All right. I'm ready to go at it.
All right. Thanks for coming on, dude. This is fun.
Thanks so much.
Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you so much for tuning into the show. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a review, and share it with a friend. We'll see you in the next one.